Why hasn't Africa processed her cocoa beans? The limited processing of cocoa beans within Africa, particularly in comparison to countries in Europe and North America, is a complex issue with several contributing factors. Here are some of the key reasons. 1. Historical factors. Historically, Africa has been a primary source of cocoa beans for the global market. Many African countries have focused on cocoa cultivation as a cash crop, selling raw cocoa beans to foreign buyers. This historical pattern of export-oriented production has not encouraged local cocoa processing. 2. Infrastructure and technology. The lack of modern cocoa processing facilities, infrastructure, and technology in many African cocoa-producing countries has hindered the development of a local cocoa processing industry. Investment in processing infrastructure requires significant capital and technical expertise. 3. Economic incentives. Exporting raw cocoa beans can provide immediate income for cocoa farmers and countries, whereas cocoa processing requires additional investments in processing facilities and expertise. In some cases, the economic incentives have favored selling beans rather than processing them. 4. Access to markets. African countries may find it easier to export raw cocoa beans to global markets than to compete with well-established chocolate manufacturers in Europe and North America. Access to global markets and distribution networks is often a challenge for local processing industries. 5. Value addition. Processing cocoa beans into cocoa products like cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and chocolate involves adding value to the raw material. While this can potentially yield higher profits, it also requires more advanced processing technology and marketing capabilities, which may be lacking in some African countries. 6. Quality and consistency. Maintaining consistent quality and meeting international quality standards for cocoa products can be a challenge for emerging cocoa processing industries. Meeting these standards is crucial for gaining access to international markets. 7. Supply chain challenges. African countries often face supply chain challenges, including issues related to transportation, logistics, and post-harvest processing. These challenges can affect the quality and quantity of cocoa beans available for processing. 8. Policy and regulatory frameworks. The regulatory environment in some African countries may not be conducive to cocoa processing. This can include issues related to trade policies, taxation, and regulations that may discourage investment in the cocoa processing sector. 9. Export earnings. Cocoa is a significant source of export earnings for many African countries, and there can be resistance to diverting cocoa away from export markets to meet domestic processing needs. 10. Capacity building. Developing a cocoa processing industry requires a skilled workforce with expertise in processing techniques, quality control, and product development. Capacity building efforts in these areas may be needed. Despite these challenges, there are initiatives and efforts in some African countries to promote local cocoa processing. These initiatives aim to capture more of the value chain, create jobs, and add value to the local economy. As global demand for chocolate and cocoa products continues to grow, there may be increased incentives for African countries to invest in cocoa processing infrastructure and capabilities, ultimately allowing them to benefit more from their cocoa production.